legendary investor Jeremy Grantham.
In my career in America, the percentage of GDP that goes to finance has gone from 3.5 to 8.5. In a way, we're like a giant bloodsucker.
I find this, at some level, astounding.
Yeah.
Mandalas and other symbols of order, Jung believed to be compensatory symbols of wholeness.
Nobody knows how this is going to turn out. This is an experiment.
I think it's been incomplete regulatory policy that has led to these vulnerabilities.
I just don't know what all this stuff is.
It was not until later that I thought about it rationally and tried to arrive at the laws behind it.
Get off my land.
Hello there. I have a business question. Please explain to me why...
If it's 50% higher now than it was 6 months ago, I guess we were pretty bad on estimating its value 6 months ago.
As your attorney, I must remind you that
they have the housing market, the stock market, and the bond market all overpriced at the same time.
Right now. As more Americans try to get in on the party.
The world was so focused on
Right now, we're in a raging mania.
Some worry a crash is to come.
It's the burst of euphoria that typically brings these things to an end.
The interesting thing, though, is
There's a bubble. There's a bubble. There's a bubble.
On the front line, trying to understand how and why and how long symptoms take to appear.
I don't necessarily have answers. I have questions.
Solidarity is quite dangerous. From the point of view of the masters, you're only supposed to care about yourself.
Sort of that sublime meeting violence. And that happens here.
this is quite different from the people they claim are their heroes, like Adam Smith, who based his whole approach to the economy on the principle that sympathy is a fundamental human trait.
But a lot of other people from the world are part of this discourse, and
this is critical for both creating containment plans and assessing whether countermeasures are actually working.
For you, crafted by American men and women.
We will look at this as an epic mistake and one of the great financial calamities of all time.
Billions have been piling into so-called meme stocks.
I mean, what you're describing is mania.
Does that leave any room at all for criticism of
fabricating consumers?
Capable of enormous self-deception.
We didn't appreciate
a mental process.
What we have done is created layers upon layers of more and more convoluted, expensive financial instruments. And that's what makes all the profit for the financial industry.
The Fed having pumped asset prices to historically high levels doesn't make me feel comfortable. I feel as anxious today as I've ever felt about the financial world. Because of my belief that the Fed has been pumping up asset prices in a way that is creating a bit of an illusion.
By allowing this shadow banking system to develop, we've inserted a source of instability in our entire economic system that doesn't need to be there.
Little known and unregulated financial companies that had been flourishing in the easy money economy, known as shadow banks.
That goes from stage to stage.
Fascinating. It is very difficult, and we don't have a tool that you just need to switch on and everything is fine.
What are you talking about?
It can change in a way that's beyond your control.
Time will tell how successful it will be.
On your behalf.
That helped me to understand why Freud developed such a theory, or why Arthur developed his theory, his power principle.
And from outer space to cyberspace, information is power.
Inequality is really unprecedented. It's like the worst periods of American history. The effect of the concentration of wealth is to yield concentration of power.
There's a trace of sedition in your talk. And whenever a new environment goes around an old one, there's always new terror.
Deriving from the collective unconscious.
The crowd's guidance can be a useful crutch to lean upon, but what happens when we use it too often, when we're just lazy? The concept we're teasing out here is known as herding behavior, and we can define it as people doing what others do instead of using their own information to make decisions.
But you do have to have emotional control. I mean, we see very smart people do very stupid things. And it's fascinating how humans do that. Just take the people that get very rich and then leverage themselves up in some way that they lose everything.
Confusing, huh?
Well, one day that's going to happen to me.
You have to have an interest in money, I think, or you won't be good at investing. But I think if you're very greedy, it'll be a disaster because that will overcome rationality.
But my relation to reality was not particularly brilliant. I was often at variance with the reality of things. Now that gives you all the necessary data. Indications that one doesn't know what one sees. Is it trees or is it the wood? It's very difficult to say.
We're trying to keep tabs on what's happening and making sure that we have the right policies in place to address that.
And then, of course, this is the opposite, right? From the beginning, we are asked to serve competing agendas. The agenda of instinctual truth, natural development, and the agenda of whatever our social unit or tribe is asking of us.
It takes a lot of introspection to sort of get there, right?
It's like with an iceberg. You see just a small tip on the surface and the rest is beneath.
What people?
Or if they had spent the necessary time on themselves. But this is not popular, you know, to spend time on oneself. Because our point of view is entirely extroverted.
All right? Any other questions? Yeah, question back there.
So what do you think the common theme is in what seems to be a really disjointed path?
No way.
That's all you need to know.
things are going to happen that we just can't foresee.
It's what made it so dangerous.
I'm used to writing opera.
Those are stepping stones, building blocks to get to the sort of thing.
We ain't gonna stand for being robbed. Where's our money?
Summed it up pretty well.
Interesting.
In fact, it really depends upon what invisible things you're trying to communicate.
But there will be collateral effects.
I'm used to writing opera, and of course...
Where are we going? That's really important.
So it's a great question. I'll answer it towards the end.
I should have seen this coming.
You really wouldn't have seen it coming. Hello, test subject.
How do I understand that?
It's like the primal experience is story.
I'm used to writing opera.
Startled by a sudden shadow.
So that's why, I find these questions amusing, because I hear them all the time from Wall Street. And these are folks who don't care about what's actually happening on Main Street. I don't hear it from Main Street. I certainly don't hear it from low-income communities.
Billionaires now hold 2/3 more in wealth than the bottom half of the U.S. population.
Looked up from her work to see a hawk turn her prize rooster into a cloud of feathers.
This is what our culture is beginning to carry on in very big dimensions.
It's just like before. The same thing. I wasn't important. I was all alone again. There wasn't anybody. You know,
most of the time, if you really stop and pay attention, one's being flooded by traffic messages of various kinds. A psychedelic threat. And they usually have to do with protecting us from two elemental threats, feeling overwhelmed by life or feeling abandoned by life.
So they don't own a house, they don't own stocks, they don't have a 401k. The most valuable asset they have is their job. So by putting people back to work and helping to boost their wages, we are actually making their most valuable asset more valuable.
You cannot imagine how one-sided people are in our workers.
What do they mean?
There's a sense of...
Well, that ain't good.
This machine is different than what we just looked at. This machine is larger, it's used for higher forces, it's used for higher speeds.
The majority of Americans said they were financially anxious.
Yes.
40% of Americans didn't have more than a $400 rainy day fund.
Feel free to wear your magic sunglasses all damn day.
And history is truly on the move today.
We need to use this crisis to finish the work that we did not finish after 08.
And the thing that grasped me and excited me about this vision of the world,
the need to maintain balance.
But it is unacceptable as an American citizen that we have a financial system that is this risky and this vulnerable.
She told me this story 60 years ago. I don't know if it's true, but it ought to be.
It is an awfully daunting task.
The expectation that somehow this approach was going to enable Americans to enjoy life, liberty, and happiness was demolished.
Machines like these help make things safer.
But I want to start off by saying,
what do I know?
Could prove effective, and trials have already started. If countermeasures fail.
Okay.
For example, and what is the effect of all this? It leaves all kinds of other people behind.
Now, in the time that I have left, it turns out...
The first thing you notice, the past isn't dead, it's not even past.
There has to be an answer someplace.
There is, but you won't find it in jail.
It's titled A Story Can Change Your Life. On the morning she became a young widow, my grandmother, startled by it,
but because it pointed towards a mission for humanity's future.
The notion that history is going our way was demolished.
But on the other hand,
so that was I'd say a subtle analysis.
Well, I think all financial regulators that have a seat at the table have responsibility for what was left incomplete after 2008 and where we go from here. We need to use this crisis to finish the work.
What they call the controlled action.
Well, we're making choices every day, choices that at the time seem the right choices for us, but later we might scratch our head and say, what was I thinking about there? How did it lead to this outcome? What about that pattern, that repetition in my life?
Prevent accidents and be happy.